Hey everyone, we are live for Middle School XP today, and so if you are jumping in and joining us live, I am so glad that you are here today. And if you are not live, whether you're watching this on IGTV or just on our Instagram feed, or maybe on YouTube a little bit later today, we're just so glad that you're continuing to plug in and be a part of what's going on today. Hey, I want to ask a question as we get going. So whether you are watching live or whether you are watching later, think about this. And if you're watching live, you can comment it and we'll talk about it later. But when is the last time that you either said to yourself or said out loud to someone else, "That's not fair"? When is the last time that you said or thought, "That's not fair"? You know, I think one of the classic examples that we think of a lot is group projects. You know, when we do a lot of the work in a group project and maybe someone else does not do as much work as we did, but we all get the same grade, it can feel like that's really not fair. Or maybe, you know, as you've been home a lot more over the last few months, and you've maybe been doing chores around the house, and you feel like some of those chores are not fair, or other people are doing less that you're doing, and that doesn't feel fair at all. You know, maybe as things are starting to reopen, you're looking at what your friends are doing, and it feels like, you know, maybe they're doing things that you're not or aren't ready to do, and that can feel really unfair. You know, I remember when I was in middle school, specifically actually when I was in 5th grade, and I tried out for my school's basketball team. Now, you might be watching this and be thinking, "Zach trying out for basketball? It doesn't seem right." Or if you played basketball with me at work camp, that definitely doesn't seem like it adds up. But at the time, sports were a huge part of my life. I love sports, and it felt like a lot of life at that time was leading up to trying out for the 5th grade basketball team. And tryouts came, and the team list came out, and I did not make the team. And at the time, that felt super unfair. I was like, why did this person make the team but I didn't? You know, how does this all add up? You know, and I just kept thinking things would change, or hoping, or I would, you know, just thinking, like, what if I wake up tomorrow and it was all a dream and I'm actually on the team, and it felt really unfair. And, you know, now years and years and years later, that's not as big of a deal to me anymore. But even then, you know, there are all these things in life that, you know, when we experience them, they can feel really unfair. And over time, maybe they seem like smaller things that are unfair. But the truth is that there are also really big things in life that are really unfair. You know, whether we are experiencing them or not, there are a lot of things that are unfair in life. And we call those things injustice. That when something is unfair, when something is just wrong, when it doesn't add up, we call that injustice. Injustice can fill us with all of these different feelings. We can maybe feel so overwhelmed that we don't know what to feel or how to feel, or even where to start. You know, we might be thinking, you know, what if I do say something? What if I do ask a question and people judge me? What if I don't and people judge me that way? What if I bring something up but it's just awkward because no one else is on the same page? What if I just don't know where to start? What do I do? You know, injustice is such a big and such a tricky issue, and such a big and tricky topic that can leave us feeling that way. And so we're going to start a series today called Look Out, that's all about injustice, all about looking out at injustice in the world and asking, so what do we do about it? Where can we start? And so we're going to kick things off today in this series. And I think the best way to do it is to look at someone who cares about injustice a lot. And that's Jesus. You know, Jesus really, really cares about when things are unfair, when things are not right, when there's injustice in the world. So much of what we have recorded about his life are stories about him encountering people who were in unfair and unjust situations in life, including the one that we're going to look at today with a guy named Bartimaeus. Such a cool name, Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus was a person who was blind. And at that time, his best chance in life was to sit on the side of the road and ask people who walked by for money. You know, he was in an unjust and an unfair situation in life and in a system that caused him that was his best chance at life, was to sit and ask for money as people would walk by. And one day, one of those people walking by was Jesus. And Jesus wasn't alone. He was actually with a crowd of people. And when this crowd passes, Bartimaeus realizes that Jesus is in the crowd. That's why the crowd is there. And so Bartimaeus calls out to Jesus. And the crowd basically tells Bartimaeus, hey, you need to stay in your lane. Hey, like, don't bug Jesus. We're going to hang out with him. Don't bother the big guy, which is really not cool to begin with. And Jesus doesn't think it's cool either, because he doesn't agree with the crowd. He goes to Bartimaeus. He recognizes Bartimaeus calling out to him, and he heals Bartimaeus. It is by his faith that he is healed, and that he moves on. Jesus doesn't ignore Bartimaeus. Jesus doesn't look at Bartimaeus and say, well, that's just how it is. I have to move on. He doesn't go with the crowd or just keep walking, ignoring like it never happened. No, Jesus does what he can to help in this story. And for us, I think when we see injustice, we have to do the same thing. When we see injustice, we have to do what we can to help. And that can feel so big. But so often it looks like just taking the next right step, just like doing the next right thing. And so if you're in that place of like, okay, even that feels complicated, even just doing what I can to help feels so hard. Where do we start? Well, I think there's two things that we can do. And the first one is pray. It's just as simple as that. Pray. Ask God to help you see when things are unfair, to help you recognize when people are in unfair and unjust situations in life. And to not only do that, to ask God to help you look out and to see those things, but to also give you a heart for those things, to see them and to know and feel that they are not right, that something is wrong with what is happening there. And the second thing is that I think we need to pick one thing. So often with something as big something that's as big as injustice, we can get so overwhelmed by how much work there is to do or how many steps it's going to take to move towards progress that we can shut down, or we can feel like there's nothing that we can do. But instead of that, let's just pick one thing. Pick the next right thing to do, and then we can do the next right thing after that, but let's focus on the first right thing. And as you think about these things, include your family in the conversations. What we do together as a family is so much bigger than what we can do on our own. And so start the conversation of, hey, what can we do to tackle these issues? Sorry, there's some dogs barking behind me, and that's just how it is in my neighborhood. But to think about what is the next right thing that we can do. And again, this is really hard. This is a really, really big idea, but we don't have to tackle it alone, like everything that we talk about. So we are going to be working through this idea more about why does this matter? What does it look like to carry this out? What are these first steps that we can take? How can we model what Jesus did in the story with Bartimaeus that we talked about today? We're going to be doing all of that in small groups, so I hope you get a chance to check in at 1:30 today on Zoom. If you need the link to today's Zoom call, please let someone know. Please, if you're watching on Instagram, just send us a DM and we'll get you the link. And we can't wait to see you there, friends. And I'll see you then.